Commander stood in front of the large glass window and watched the nursery below. His 4 arms were crossed tightly against his chest. His mandibles clicked in frustration as he saw the chaos happening inside. 6 small cubs were running wild. They jumped on the sleeping beds. They threw food at each other. They screamed and bit and scratched anything that moved. 2 robotic helpers lay broken in the corner. The walls had claw marks everywhere. Instructor stood in the middle of the room, her fur covered in some kind of purple liquid. She looked defeated. She had been trying to control these cubs for 6 months now. Nothing worked. Not rewards, not punishment, not fancy technology. The cubs simply refused to listen to anyone. Turned away from the window and walked down the long hallway of Station Harmony 7. This space station was supposed to be a symbol of peace between all the species in the Galactic Union. Instead, it had become his personal nightmare. These cubs were not ordinary children. Their parents were important diplomats and military leaders. In 2 months, the Union Summit would happen on this very station. Hundreds of important aliens from across the galaxy would come, and these 6 cubs were supposed to demonstrate basic protocols during the opening ceremony. At this rate, they would probably set the stage on fire. Entered his office and found a message waiting on his screen. It was from the Galactic Council. He read it 3 times because he could not believe what it said. A human had volunteered to help with the cubs. Made a sound of disbelief. Humans, those soft, fragile creatures who had only been in space for about 100 years, they knew nothing about raising children. Cubs were predator-class offspring. They had claws that could cut through metal. They had teeth designed for tearing flesh. They had instincts that made them attack anything that showed weakness. What could a human possibly do? But the council had already approved it. The human would arrive tomorrow. The next morning stood at the docking bay with instructor and was a human male who worked as an aide to the human ambassador. He was tall for a human, with a serious face and straight posture. Had worked with him before. The man was competent but strangely emotional, like all humans seemed to be. The transport ship opened its doors. A young human female walked out. She was smaller than, with long black hair tied behind her head. She carried a large bag over her shoulder and wore a simple gray uniform. Her name tag read, Park. She smiled at them. It was a warm smile, the kind that reached her eyes, did not trust it. "Thank you for having me," said. Her voice was soft and calm. "I am very excited to meet the children." "They are not children," corrected her. "They are cubs, predator-class cubs. They have sent 2 of our instructors to the medical bay." Smile did not fade. "I understand. May I see them now?" Looked at instructor, shrugged her shoulders in a gesture that clearly said, "Let her learn the hard way." They walked through the station to the nursery wing. Through the glass window they could see the 6 cubs. They had calmed down a little but were still making a mess. The smallest one, a cub called Pip, was chewing on a metal pipe. Another one, Tiki, was trying to climb the walls. "Their names are Pip, Tiki, Boo, Nana, and," explained, "is the largest and most aggressive. He has bitten everyone who has entered that room. I recommend you wear protective gear." Shook her head. "No protective gear. They will see it as a threat." "It is meant to protect you from the threat," said. "I will be fine," replied. She put down her bag and opened it. Inside were strange objects. Soft balls of different colors, strips of fabric, small containers of something that smelled sweet. Did not recognize any approved training equipment. "What are those?" he asked. "Toys," said simply. "And treats. I made the treats myself. They are safe for biology, I checked." Before could object, walked to the nursery door. She pressed the button to open it. The door slid open with a soft sound. All 6 cubs immediately turned to look at her. Their eyes were bright and predatory. The largest let out a low growl, his claws extended. Stepped inside. The door closed behind her. Pressed closer to the glass. Beside him, his hands were clenched into fists, was already reaching for the emergency button. The cubs surrounded. They circled her like hunters surrounding prey, moved closer, teeth showing. Tiki hissed from behind her. The others watched with eager eyes, waiting for their leader to attack. Did something unexpected. She sat down on the floor. She crossed her legs, placed her hands on her knees, and simply sat there. She did not make eye contact with any of the cubs. She did not speak. She did not move. The cubs seemed confused. This was not normal behavior. Prey was supposed to run. Prey was supposed to fight. Prey was supposed to be afraid. This human just sat there, breathing quietly. Minutes passed, moved closer. He sniffed at her hair, stayed still. Tiki poked her shoulder with one claw. She did not react. Boo tried to pull her hair. She let him. After about 10 minutes, something changed. Pip, the smallest cub, moved away from the group. He walked slowly toward, his head tilted with curiosity. The other cubs watched but did not stop him. Pip sat down in front of. He looked at her face. She finally looked back at him and smiled gently. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is. What is your name?" Pip did not answer. Cubs his age could speak, but he had never spoken to any instructor before. Reached into her pocket slowly. She pulled out one of the treats she had made. It was small and round and smelled like the sweet fruits that grew on the. She held it out to Pip. "Would you like one?" she asked. Pip looked at the treat. He looked back at the treat. Then he took it from her hand and put it in his mouth. His eyes went wide. He made a small sound of happiness. Before anyone could react, he climbed into his lap and curled up against her chest. And then something remarkable happened. Pip began to purr. Outside the glass, Commander felt his heart stop. He turned to Instructor. Her mouth was hanging open. "That sound," said slowly. "What is that sound?" Shook her head. "I do not know. I have never heard them make that sound before." Looked back through the glass. Was gently stroking Pip's fur. The small cub was still purring, his eyes half closed with contentment. The other 5 cubs had stopped circling. They were sitting down, watching with a different look in their eyes. Not hunger, not anger. Curiosity. Let out a breath. "What did she do?" he whispered. Did not have an answer. He had seen many things in his long career. He had fought in wars. He had negotiated peace treaties. He had faced creatures that could destroy planets. But he had never seen anyone sit down in a room full of predator cubs and simply wait for them to come to her. As he watched smile down at the purring cub in her lap, Commander felt the first hint of something he had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Perhaps this strange human knew something they did not. Perhaps she could do the impossible. Or perhaps she was simply crazy. Either way, decided he would watch her very carefully. Because whatever happened next, he knew it would be unlike anything he had ever seen before. And he was right. 2 weeks had passed since Park arrived on Station Harmony 7. Commander had watched her every single day through the observation window, and every single day he saw something that made no sense to him. The cubs were changing. Not slowly, not gradually. They were changing fast like flowers blooming after rain, and could not understand how. Today, he stood at his usual spot behind the glass. The nursery looked different now. The broken robots had been removed. The claw marks on the walls had been covered with colorful drawings the cubs had made. Soft cushions were scattered across the floor. It looked less like a containment cell and more like a home. Inside sat in the middle of a circle. All 6 cubs sat around her, their eyes fixed on in her hands. She was reading them a story. Her voice rose and fell with the words, sometimes soft, sometimes loud, sometimes funny. The cubs listened without moving. This was impossible. These same cubs had destroyed every learning program the station had tried. They had broken every teaching screen. They had refused to sit still for even 1 minute. Now they sat quietly for an hour, just to hear this human read stories about adventures in faraway stars. The door behind opened, walked in with of his own. His face looked troubled. "Commander," said, "I have completed my daily report on the humans' activities." Did not look away from the window, and she is not using any approved methods, no reward systems, no punishment protocols, no behavioral modification technology. Paused. She is playing with them. Playing? Yes, Commander, she has taught them games. Something called hide and seek, where one person closes their eyes and the others hide. Something called tag, where they chase each other. She lets them climb on her. She lets them pull her hair. She makes strange sounds with her mouth that she calls singing. Finally turned to look at singing. Nodded. It is a human custom. They make musical sounds with their voices. The cubs seem to enjoy it very much. They try to copy her. Mandibles clicked rapidly. This was all wrong. Cubs needed strict rules. They needed clear boundaries. They needed to understand their place in the hierarchy. Playing games and singing songs would not teach them anything useful. And yet the results were undeniable. Movement in the nursery caught his attention. Story time had ended. Put down the and clapped her hands together. "Who wants to play the sharing game?" she asked. All 6 cubs raised their paws eagerly. Even the largest and most aggressive looked excited. Pulled out a basket of treats. "Remember the rules. Everyone gets 1 treat, but before you can eat it, you must give a treat to someone else first." She handed 1 treat to each cub. They held them carefully. Pip walked over to Nana and offered his treat. "This is for you," he said shyly. Nana took it with a smile. Then she turned and offered her treat to Boo. One by one, each cub gave their treat to another. When the circle was complete, everyone had a treat, and everyone had given one away. "Very good," said. "You all did so well, now you can eat." The cubs ate happily, making purring sounds that was starting to hear more often. "Sharing," said quietly. "She is teaching them to share." "Yes," confirmed. "She says it is important for cubs to learn that giving makes them happy, not just receiving." Did not know what to say. In culture, sharing was a sign of weakness. Cubs were taught to take what they wanted, to be strong, to dominate. This human was teaching them the exact opposite. And it was working. Later that day, decided to enter the nursery himself. He had to understand what was happening. He pressed the button and the door opened. The cubs immediately noticed him. Ears flattened against his head, Tiki hissed softly, the others backed away toward. Stood up and smiled. "Commander, how nice of you to visit." "I need to understand," said. "What are you doing to these cubs?" "I am not doing anything to them," replied. "I am doing things with them. There is a difference." Stepped closer. One of the younger cubs growled at him. "They do not like me," observed. "They do not know you," corrected. "They do not trust you because you have never given them a reason to trust you." "I am their commander. I am responsible for their safety. That should be enough." Shook her head gently. "Trust is not about responsibility. Trust is about connection. Have you ever sat on the floor with them? Have you ever played with them? Have you ever asked them what they are feeling?" Was silent. He had never done any of those things. It had never occurred to him that he should. Suddenly Tiki moved forward. He approached and tugged on her sleeve. His eyes looked worried. Tiki said, "I did something bad yesterday." Knelt down to his level. "What did you do?" Tiki looked at the floor. "I bit your arm really hard. I saw the blood. I did not mean to hurt you. I was just scared because was being loud and I did not know what to do." Took his small paw in her hands. "Thank you for telling me, Tiki. That was very brave." "Are you angry at me?" "No, I am not angry. You made a mistake because you were scared. Everyone makes mistakes when they are scared. What matters is that you understand now and you will try to be different next time." Tiki's eyes filled with tears. "I do not want to hurt you ever again." "I know," said softly, "and I forgive you." Tiki threw himself into her arms and cried, held him gently, stroking his fur and whispering comforting words. The other cubs gathered around them, pressing close, offering their own comfort to their brother. Watched this scene with something strange happening in his chest. He had seen cubs his whole life. He had never seen them cry. He had never seen them comfort each other. He had been taught that cubs did not have such feelings. But these cubs did. They had always had these feelings. They just needed someone to show them it was safe to express them. Hal asked quietly, "How do you do this?" Looked up at him. Her eyes were kind. "I do not see predators, Commander. I see lonely children who have never been hugged. I see scared little ones who act tough because no one has ever told them it is okay to be soft. I see cubs who need love, not control." Love, such a simple word, such a human word. Thought about his own childhood, his own training. He had been taught to be strong, to never show weakness, to dominate or be dominated. He had never been hugged. He had never been told it was okay to be afraid. For the first time in his life, Commander wondered if maybe, just maybe, his people had been doing it wrong all along. That night sat alone in his office. He pulled up the security footage from the nursery. He watched teaching the cubs to do something called a high five. They slapped their paws against her open palm, making a small sound. Each time they did it, they laughed with joy. All 6 cubs did it perfectly, but only 4. When instructor tried the same thing, the cubs refused. When tried, they were hesitant but eventually him because he was friend. But for anyone else, nothing. Leaned back in his chair. He had a problem. In less than 2 months, these cubs needed to perform at the summit. They needed to demonstrate protocols for dignitaries from across the galaxy. They needed to show that children were disciplined and well-trained. But they would only listen to one person. A human. A soft, fragile, furless human who sat on floors and sang songs and taught predator cubs to share treats. Did not know if this was a miracle or a disaster. Perhaps it was both. Rumors spread through Station Harmony, 7 like fire through dry grass. Everyone was talking about the human and the cubs. The stories grew stranger with each telling. Some said she had used illegal chemicals to control their minds. Others claimed she had implanted tiny machines in their brains. A few whispered that humans had secret powers that no one knew about, powers that could make any creature obey them. By the 4th week, the Galactic Council had heard enough rumors to take action. They ordered a formal investigation. Commander was put in charge. He did not want this job. He had seen what did every day. He had watched her sit on the floor with the cubs. He had watched her play games and sing songs and wipe tears from furry faces. He had seen nothing suspicious. But orders were orders. Called to his office. She came with a calm expression as if she had been expecting this, came with her looking worried. "Park," said formally, "the Galactic Council has ordered an investigation into your methods. There are concerns that you may be using unauthorized techniques to control the cubs." Tilted her head. "What kind of techniques?" "Chemical manipulation, neural conditioning, pheromone control." To his surprise, laughed. It was a soft, gentle laugh, not mocking or angry. "Commander," she said, "I do not even know what neural conditioning is. I study alien life. I do not have any special technology or secret chemicals." "Then how do you explain the results? These cubs have been impossible to train for 6 months. You have been here for 4 weeks, and they already obey your every word." Shook her head. "They do not obey me, they listen to me. There is a big difference." "Explain." Sat down in the chair across from his desk. Stood behind her, still looking nervous. "When I first entered that nursery," began, "I saw 6 scared children, not monsters, not predators. Children. They had claws and teeth, yes. But underneath all of that, they were just little ones who did not understand why everyone was afraid of them." She paused and looked at her hands. On Earth, we have something called orphanages. They are places where children without parents live. Sometimes these children become very difficult. They fight, they bite, they scream, they push everyone away. Why? Asked. Because they are scared, because they have been hurt before, because they have learned that the world is a dangerous place and the only way to survive is to be dangerous too. But these children are not bad. They just need someone to show them that being soft is not the same as being weak. Considered her words, and that is what you have been doing. Yes, I sit on the floor so I am not bigger than them. I let them come to me so they do not feel trapped. I never punish them for making mistakes because punishment only teaches them to be more afraid. I show them that I trust them, and slowly they learn to trust me back. That is not a recognized training methodology, pointed out. Smiled, maybe it should be. The investigation continued for another week. Had medical officers examined the cubs for any signs of chemical manipulation. He had technicians scan for neural implants. He reviewed every piece of footage from the nursery, looking for evidence of wrongdoing. He found nothing. Presented his own report to the investigation board. He had watched every day since her arrival. He had documented every interaction, every game, every lesson. She is not using any technology or substances, told the board. She is just kind. I know that sounds strange. I know it is not a scientific explanation, but it is the truth. She treats those cubs like they are precious. She tells them they are good. She believes in them, and somehow they can feel it. The board members looked at each other with confusion. Kindness was not something they could measure. It was not something they could put in a report, but they could not deny the results. The cubs had stopped biting. They had stopped scratching. They no longer destroyed things or hurt people. They said please and thank you. They shared their food. They comforted each other when someone was sad. In 4 weeks, had achieved what 6 months of professional training could not. The investigation was closed. No wrongdoing was found. But was not satisfied. He needed to understand this better, so he did something he had never done before. He went to the nursery at night when everyone was asleep and watched the footage from the internal cameras. He saw reading bedtime stories to the cubs. He saw her tucking them into their beds one by one. He saw her checking on them throughout the night, adjusting their blankets, making sure they were comfortable. He saw the largest and most aggressive cub wake up from a nightmare. The cub was shaking and crying softly. Before any alarm could sound was there. She sat beside his bed and held his paw. Bad dream, she whispered. Nodded, tears running down his fur. Do you want to tell me about it? Shook his head. That is okay. You do not have to talk about it. I will just sit here with you until you feel better. Is that okay? Nodded again. Stayed by his side for over an hour, just holding his paw until he fell back asleep. Turned off the footage. He sat in the dark for a long time thinking. He had commanded armies. He had managed space stations. He had dealt with diplomats and politicians and warriors from 100 different species. But he had never in his life seen someone sit with a frightened child for an hour in the middle of the night, just to make them feel safe. The next day, instructor came to see. She looked different. Her usual proud posture was gone. She seemed smaller somehow, more humble. Commander, she said quietly, I need to ask you something. What is it? Hesitated. Her mandibles trembled slightly. I have been an instructor for 30 years. I have trained hundreds of cubs. I thought I knew everything about raising young, but this human has shown me that I know nothing. She took a deep breath. I want to ask her to teach me. I want to learn her methods, but I am ashamed to admit that I need help. Looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. I will go with you, he said. Together they walked to the nursery. Was inside, watching the cubs play a game together. When she saw and at the window, she came out to meet them. Is something wrong? She asked. stepped forward. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Teach me, please, teach me what you do. I want to learn how to help them the way you do. I want to understand." His eyes softened. She took his large clawed hand in her small human one. "Of course," she said simply. "We can start tomorrow, but first you need to learn the most important lesson." "What is that?" Smiled. "You need to learn how to sit on the floor." Stared at her. Then slowly she began to laugh. It was a rusty sound, like she had not laughed in a very long time, but it was real. Watched them walk into the nursery together. He saw lower herself to the floor and then help do the same. The cubs gathered around them, curious about this new development. For the first time, Commander allowed himself to believe that maybe everything would be okay. Maybe this strange human really could teach them all something important. And maybe, just maybe, the upcoming summit would not be a disaster after all. 1 week remained before the Union Summit. Commander had not slept properly in 3 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of hundreds of dignitaries watching 6 cubs destroy everything in sight. The pressure was enormous. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy would attend. The High Council had sent messages every day, reminding that their reputation depended on this demonstration. If the cubs failed, it would be a disgrace that would follow the people for generations. Had finally agreed to begin structured training, but she insisted on doing it her way. Watched from behind the observation glass as she gathered the cubs in the center of the nursery. Stood beside him, ready to take notes. Instructor was inside with learning as she promised. "Okay, little ones," said cheerfully. "Today we are going to learn something very important. We are going to learn how to greet important visitors." Raised his paw. "Why?" "Because in 1 week there will be a big event. Many people will come to our station, and you 6 have been chosen to show them how wonderful cubs can be." Boo looked worried. "What if they do not like us?" Knelt down and took his small paw. "They will like you, I promise, because you are going to be so polite and so brave that they will have no choice but to be impressed." "How do we be polite?" Nana asked. Smiled. "I am going to teach you a game. It is called the politeness contest. Whoever shows the best manners wins a prize." The cubs immediately perked up. They loved games. They loved prizes even more. "First, we need to learn the greeting bow." Stood up straight and placed one hand over her heart. Then she bent forward at the waist, keeping her back straight. "Like this, try it." The cubs tried. Pip bent too far and almost fell over. Tiki forgot to put his paw on his chest. Barely bent at all. But they kept trying, laughing at their mistakes, encouraging each other. After an hour, all 6 could do a perfect bow. "Wonderful," clapped her hands. "Now who can tell me what we say after we bow?" "Thank you for coming," Nana guessed. "Close, we say, 'Welcome to Station Harmony 7. We are honored by your presence.'" Said it slowly, letting each word sink in. "Can you say that with me?" They practiced the words over and over, made it fun by having them say it in different voices. A whisper voice, a silly voice, a robot voice, a monster voice. The cubs laughed so hard that fell over. By the end of the day, they could recite the greeting perfectly. The next few days continued like this. Every lesson became a game. Standing still during ceremonies became statue freeze. Whoever moved first was out. The cubs competed fiercely, holding their breath, staying as still as rocks. Table manners became a fancy dinner party. Pretended to be a snooty guest with a high voice and picky demands. The cubs had to serve her properly and use correct utensils. They giggled every time she made a face at imaginary bad food. The Unity Pledge became a song. Put the words to a simple melody, and the cubs sang it together every morning. Even, listening from outside, found himself humming it later. Everything was going well, too well. Then discovered the problem. On the 5th day, he decided to test the cubs himself. He entered the nursery with a formal expression. The cubs immediately stopped playing and gathered around, pressing close to her legs. "I will conduct a practice demonstration," announced. "Cubs, please perform the greeting protocol." The cubs looked at. She nodded encouragingly. Pip stepped forward. He tried to bow, but his legs were shaking so badly that he stumbled. Tiki forgot the words. Boo started crying, just stood there frozen, unable to move at all. It was a disaster. Felt his heart sink. Why, they did it perfectly just yesterday. Stepped forward, her face concerned. "They are scared, Commander. They do not know you. They do not trust you." "But the summit is in 2 days. They cannot perform for me. How will they perform for strangers?" Had no answer. That night called an emergency meeting and gathered in his office. The mood was heavy. "The cubs can perform every protocol perfectly," said, "but only for the moment anyone else asks them, they freeze." "What about instructor?" asked. Shook her head. "They tolerate me now. They will let me sit with them and play games, but they still do not fully trust me, not the way they trust." Turn 2 and you. "They like me because I am's friend, but I am human. I cannot be on stage with them at a ceremony." There was silence in the room. Everyone understood the problem. The cubs had bonded with completely. She was their safe place, their anchor. Without her, they fell apart. "I need to go to them," said quietly. "I need to talk to them about this." She stood and walked to the nursery. The others followed. Inside, the cubs were huddled together on a pile of cushions. They looked sad. They knew something was wrong. Sat down among them. She gathered them close, letting them press against her. "Listen to me carefully," she said softly. "I need to tell you something important." 6 pairs of eyes looked up at her. "The big event is in 2 days. Many strangers will come to watch you, and I cannot be on stage with you." Pip's eyes went wide. "What, why not?" "Because this is a ceremony. Humans are not supposed to be part of it. You have to do it alone." The cubs started making distressed sounds. Nana began to cry, clenched his fists. "No," Tiki shouted. "We cannot do it without you. We need you." Took his face in her hands. "Listen to me, Tiki. You are so much braver than you know. All of you are. You have learned so much in these weeks. Not because of me, because of you. You did the work. You practiced the bows. You memorized the words. You learned to be polite and kind and brave. That was all you." "But what if we fail?" Boo whispered. Hugged him tightly. "Then you fail, and that is okay. Failing does not mean you are bad, it just means you tried, and trying is always worth something." "But the important people will be angry," said. Shook her head. "I do not care about important people, I care about you. I want you to go on that stage and show everyone what wonderful children you are. Not for them, not for me, for yourselves, so you can know how amazing you truly are." The nursery was quiet. The cubs looked at each other. Finally Pip spoke. "We will try for you." Smiled through tears. "No, little one, for you, always for you." Commander stood in the doorway, watching. He had commanded soldiers in battle. He had faced death without flinching. But watching this small human woman hold 6 frightened cubs and tell them they were wonderful made something crack inside his chest. He had never heard anyone speak to children that way. He was beginning to think that was the problem. Maybe they had all been doing it wrong. Maybe kindness was not weakness after all. He just hoped the cubs would remember that when they stood alone on that stage, with the whole galaxy watching. The Grand Assembly Hall of Station Harmony 7 was the largest room on the entire station. Today, it was filled with over 500 dignitaries from across the galaxy. Tall beings sat next to small, furry creatures. Beings made of light floated above beings made of stone. Every major species in the Galactic Union had sent representatives. Commander stood at the side of the massive stage, all 4 of his arms pressed tightly against his body. His hearts were beating so fast that he could hear them in his ears. Beside him, Instructor was trembling. In the audience, Park sat in the front row, was next to her. Both of them looked as nervous as felt. The ceremony had begun an hour ago with speeches and presentations. Now came the moment everyone was waiting for, the demonstration of the Cubs. A voice boomed over the speakers. "Please welcome the young representatives of the people." The side door opened. 6 small figures walked out onto the stage. Pip came first, his tiny legs taking careful steps. Then Tiki, then Boo, then Nana, then. Finally, the largest walked out last. They stood in a line at the center of the stage. The lights were bright and hot. The audience was a sea of strange faces, none of them familiar. Hundreds of eyes watched them from every direction. The Cubs looked small, very, very small. His tail was tucked between his legs. Nana was shaking. Pip kept glancing around with wide, frightened eyes. Felt his hope die. This was going to be a disaster. Then Pip looked out into the audience. He found in the front row. She smiled at him, a warm, gentle smile that said, "I believe in you. You can do this." She raised her hand slightly and gave a small wave. Something changed in Pip's face. He stood a little taller. He turned to the others and whispered something. One by one, all 6 Cubs looked at. She nodded once. And then something magical happened. The Cubs straightened their backs, their tails uncurled, their shaking stopped. As one, they turned to face the audience. Pip stepped forward. He placed his paw over his heart and bowed perfectly. "Welcome to Station Harmony 7, he said in a clear voice. "We are honored by your presence." The other Cubs bowed with him, moving together like they had practiced 1,000 times. Their voices joined his, speaking the greeting in perfect unison. The audience was silent. Then whispers began to spread. These were the Cubs that everyone had said were untrainable. But the demonstration was not over. The Cubs moved to the formal standing positions for the Unity Pledge. They stood perfectly still, not moving a single muscle, as the anthem of the Galactic Union played. When it ended, they recited the pledge together. "We are many species, but one family. We honor our differences and celebrate our bonds. Together, we reach for the stars." Their voices were strong. Their pronunciation was perfect. They did not stumble or forget a single word. Could not believe what he was seeing. He looked at. She had tears streaming down her face. Next came the table manners demonstration. A small table was brought out with formal place settings. The Cubs took their seats and showed proper dining etiquette. They used the correct utensils. They wiped their mouths with napkins. They chewed with their mouths closed and waited their turn to speak. Everything was flawless. Finally, the formal portion ended. The Cubs returned to the center of the stage and bowed once more. The audience began to clap politely, but then stepped forward. This was not part of the program. His heart stopped. He started to move toward the stage but grabbed his arm. "Wait," she whispered. "Look at his face." Did not look scared or angry. He looked determined. "We want to say something," announced. His voice was small but clear. The audience grew quiet. 500 dignitaries leaned forward with curiosity. Pointed at the front row, at. That human taught us everything. She was the first person who did not yell at us. She was the first person who did not hurt us. She played with us. She read us stories. She sang us songs. His voice started to shake, but he kept going. Before she came, everyone said we were bad. Everyone said we were monsters who could not learn anything. But she looked at us and said we were good. She said we could be wonderful if we tried. Tears were forming in his eyes. So we tried. We tried so hard, not because we had to, because we wanted to make her proud. The other Cubs moved to stand beside him. Pip took his paw. Nana took the other. "She is the best person we ever met," Pip added. "She is kind and warm, and she always makes us feel safe. We love her." One by one, the Cubs turned to face in the audience. They raised their paws and performed a gesture they had learned in secret. They pressed their paws to their mouths and then extended them outward. A human custom, blowing a kiss. 6 blown kisses flew across the Grand Assembly Hall toward the small human woman in the front row. Silence. Complete total silence. Then someone in the audience started clapping, then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire Grand Assembly Hall erupted in applause. Dignitaries rose to their feet. Beings who had never agreed on anything in 1,000 years were all united in this moment, clapping and cheering for 6 small cubs who had just shown the entire galaxy what love looked like. In the front row had buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking with sobs, put his arm around her. "They love you," he said softly. "They really love you." Looked up at the stage, at 6 furry faces beaming at her with pure joy, at 6 children who had gone from monsters to miracles. "I know," she said through her tears. "I love them too." Commander stood at the side of the stage, unable to move. He had lived for over 200 years. He had seen wonders and horrors beyond count, but he had never, in all his long life, seen anything like this. Instructor was openly weeping beside him. "How?" she kept whispering. "How did she do it?" Finally understood. Had not trained the cubs. She had not controlled them or manipulated them or forced them to behave. She had simply loved them. She had believed in them when no one else would. She had shown them kindness when everyone else showed them fear. And they had become the children she always knew they could be. The applause lasted for 10 full minutes. When it finally died down, the cubs left the stage and ran straight to the audience. They found and threw themselves into her arms, all 6 of them trying to hug her at once. The dignitaries watched with wonder. Some of them wiped tears from their eyes, or whatever organs their species used for crying. Later that evening, after the ceremony ended and the dignitaries went to their quarters, Commander sat alone in his office. He was writing his official report to the Galactic Council. He paused and looked at his screen for a long time. Then he began to type. Recommendation: humans should be formally invited to participate in all Galactic Union and educational programs. He stopped again, then continued. Reasoning: humans possess an ability that we do not understand. They see potential where others see problems. They offer kindness where others offer control. They approach the young not as creatures to be trained, but as beings to be nurtured. He took a deep breath. This is either a profound evolutionary advantage or an act of complete insanity. It may be both, but the results speak for themselves. 6 cubs who were considered untrainable have become the pride of our station. They did this not through fear or discipline, but through the simple act of being loved by one human woman. Finished his report and sent it to the council. Then he turned off his screen and walked to the nursery. Through the glass he could see sitting on the floor, surrounded by sleeping cubs. They were piled around her like she was the center of their universe, had his head on her lap. Pip was curled against her side. The others were pressed close, unwilling to let her go even in sleep. Looked up and saw watching. She smiled softly and raised one finger to her lips. "Quiet, the children are sleeping." Nodded and turned away. For years afterward, visitors to Station Harmony 7 would sometimes see a strange sight. A human woman walking through the corridors, followed by 6 growing adolescents who watched her like she had created the stars themselves. When asked about it, would simply smile. "They are my kids," she would say, "all of them." And no one ever questioned it again. Because some bonds are stronger than blood. Some families are not born. They are chosen. And sometimes, all it takes to change the universe is one person who believes that love is stronger than fear.